Hey guys, and welcome to the next N3 Game Gengo grammar video. In this video, we're going to be checking out the really interesting differences between MUKE and MUKI, how to use MUSHIRO to compare things, and finally how to use NAGARAMO. So there's a lot of really interesting language in this video, so without further ado, let's get into it.
この採石場の一番奥をご覧になったことは？
そう言われると記憶にない。確か君たち向けの医療施設ではなかったか。
MUKE. MUKE is a useful piece of language to attach to a noun that expresses that something is for the sake of or for the purpose of the noun that comes before MUKE. As in, it's intended or aimed for that noun. Like for example, kodomo muke, aimed for children. This expresses that whatever is connected to this noun, followed by MUKE, is aimed for children, like kodomo muke no hon, a book aimed for children. So kodomo muke, aimed for children, no hon, a book. This is often translated as simply for, like here, a medical facility for you guys, or a textbook for beginners. MUKE simply expresses that something is made for whatever comes before it.
エクセルシオール。
エクセルシオールは特別なお客様向けのカスタムサービスです。
So, like here, a custom service for special customers. So it's a service that is aimed for, or intended, or made for special customers.
農具のパーツは赤城町商店街の古着屋で扱っている。パイロットさん向けの裏の商売ってわけね。
A backroom business intended for pilots. So the business is for the sake of pilots.
あれは間違いなくドラゴンだった。子供向けの物語や伝説に出てくるやつだよ。
And like here, used for stories and legends that are aimed at children. So stories for children. 心の折れない人向けなんど. And finally, it can also be seen here to express a difficulty level. Here being a difficulty level for, or intended, or aimed for, people with an unbreakable heart, meaning really, really hard. So, MUKE is quite simply used in the same way that X no tame ni, for the sake of X, is used, or X o taishou toshite, as a target of X. Noun MUKE is used to express for the sake of that noun, that something is intended for it or even made for it.
アトモスを押さえた。来い。
アトモス？とろい船だな。主人公向きじゃない。
On the other hand, noun MUKI is a rather similar expression from the previous noun MUKE. And this can sometimes trip up learners of Japanese as it looks and sounds quite similar, and it still means for. However, this time, the difference in nuance with MUKI is that rather than something being made for or aimed for something, this time it's more like suitable for. So, like with the previous example, kodomo muke, something that's intended for children. Well, here, kodomo muki would be something that's suitable for children, as in, it fits the needs of children. It's suitable for them. Or like a textbook, one that is suitable for beginners. Shoshinsha muki no kyokasho. Here, rather than stating that it's made for beginners, like MUKE expresses, here it's just simply expressing that it's good or suitable for beginners, with noun plus MUKI. So, like here in Final Fantasy XII, the airship being not suitable for a protagonist. So here it has nothing to do with if the ship was made for protagonists, it's only talking about that it's not good or suitable for them.
リコイルの衝撃を肘を曲げて吸収する癖がある。どちらかというとリボルバー向きだ。
くそ。Or like here in Metal Gear Solid 3, suited for revolvers. So here talking about that a revolver would be good for him to use. It would be suitable for him.
ダメなことを確認した場合は、戦って本性を引っ張り出せか。こういう任務は俺向きじゃないと思うんだよな。
Or like here with a mission not being suitable for him, so the mission doesn't fit him.
そうか。彼女を次の大統領に。しかしそれは違うな。彼女は政治向きじゃない。
And finally in Death Stranding, not being suited for politics. Or, like in this translation, not being cut out for it. So as you can see, MUKI very simply expresses that something is suitable to the noun that comes before it. Where in comparison, MUKE expresses that it's made for, or intended for, or aimed at the noun that comes before MUKE. Both of these can be translated to for, but just know that there is this subtle difference in how it's used.
彼女はアメリカの裏切り者ではない。いいえ、彼女はむしろ国のために死んでいった英雄。
MUSHIRO. MUSHIRO is used to compare two matters and express that the former is the better option. This is often translated as rather, instead, or if anything. So for example, I would rather eat sushi. Mushiro sushi o tabetai. What sushi is being compared to may not be clear, but this mushiro expresses that sushi is the better option. I would rather eat sushi more than whatever else is mentioned. So like here again in Metal Gear Solid 3, rather than being a traitor, she actually died for her country. So you could also look at this as, instead of being a traitor, she died for her country. It expresses that if you had to compare being either a traitor or dying for one's country, that she would be closer to the latter. That's the better of the two. Just like whether you eat sushi or something else, sushi would be the better of the two.
お恨みなどしていませんよ、閣下。むしろその逆です。あなた一人を垂らし込むことで、何百人もの部下を養うことができた。
And so like here in Berserk, rather than holding a grudge, it's quite the opposite. So the first matter being compared is holding a grudge. And what the reality is more closer to is perhaps actually appreciation, or whatever the opposite of holding a grudge is.
問題はありません。むしろ面白いデータが取れそうでして。
Or like here, rather than it being a problem, it's actually a great chance to get some interesting data.
できるのか、リヴァイ。
殺すことに関しては間違いなく。問題はむしろその中間がないことにある。
Or rather than having a problem killing Titans in Attack on Titan, the problem is actually the middle ground, keeping them alive without killing them.
ラーサー様に代わって手を汚す剣の役を務めろと。
むしろ盾だな。
And finally in Final Fantasy XII, rather than being a sword which dirties its hands, you are to be a shield which dirties its hands. So again, you have these two options and showing which one is better. So Mushiro is pretty simple in that whenever you see it, you can expect two matters being compared, and that the latter or the last option being the better one, or the one that's more closer to reality. Sushi is the better option, so I would rather eat sushi. Rather than being a traitor, she's actually a hero.
心優しきアスエル王の統治のもと、貧しいながらも平和な日々を過ごしている。
Nagaramo. Nagaramo expresses that opposing actions or properties exist at the same time. This is often used in written Japanese, and it can also be used without the mo, just by simply saying nagara. And at the N3 level, this means although, despite, or while. So although one thing is a certain way, the opposing thing also is. Like, teki nagara mo sonkei dekiru. Despite being my enemy, I respect them. So the opposing properties exist at the same time of hating someone, but also respecting them. And as you can see, normally they would be contrary states, and that's what this nagaramo expresses. Despite the first thing, the second thing is also true. So, like here in Dragon Slayer, although they were poor, they lived a peaceful life. So despite the fact that they have no money, at the same time, they can still live a peaceful life, contrary to what may be the expected state, poor and unhappy. Despite that, nagaramo, they're actually poor and yet they still are happy.
また随分と寂しい子供時代だな。裕福ながらも孤独か。
Again, here in Bravely Default 2, wealthy but lonely. Despite being wealthy, they are also lonely.
この暗黒の牢獄に私がいると知りながら、十数年も放置したんだ。
Despite knowing that I was in this dark prison, they left me here. So despite knowing this reality, they did nothing about it.
囚われの身でありながら、町の者とも馴染んでいたようだ。
Or like here, despite being a prisoner, she fit into town. So you would think, the contrary thing is that you would think a prisoner wouldn't fit into town. But despite being a prisoner, she did.
イビルスパームに飲まれながらも、己を見失わず、混沌とつながるか。
And finally, despite being engulfed by this evil power, they never lost sight of themselves. So the expected result would be that this evil power engulfs you and you lose sight of yourself. But despite that, they still didn't. So as you can see, Nagaramo expresses that two opposing states or actions or properties exist at the same time. An enemy, and yet you still respect them. Poor, and yet they can still live a peaceful life. Two states that oppose or are contrary to each other, but exist at the same time. This expression is similar to the N4 piece of grammar, nagara, which expresses doing two actions at the same time. As you can see, they both hold the meaning of two things existing at the same time, but the difference with this N3 version of nagara is that the two states or actions are contrary, opposing states or actions, rather than the N4 version, which is simply just saying doing two things at once. But you can definitely see a relationship between these two pieces of grammar. In a way, you could still use actually the N4 translation, while, for nagara, with all of the example sentences that we had today. While they are my enemy, I still respect them. While they are poor, they still live a peaceful life. But just remember that this N3 version is talking about opposing states. That's what's being emphasized here. And congratulations, we have finished yet another N3 Game Gengo grammar video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned how to use some of these pieces of language. They're definitely pieces of language that are very similar to other pieces of language, MUKE and MUKI, and also Nagara, as well as MUSHIRO even with shita hogai and things like that. So this grammar is definitely very useful to learn, so hopefully this video helps you guys get a little bit more of a better feel for how the pieces of grammar are used in Japanese. As always, a huge thank you to all of the supporters on Patreon for supporting the channel. These videos take a huge amount of work and research and editing, so if you guys like the channel and you want to see more, feel free to join as a member on Patreon. Expect a ton more of these videos. I'm going to be aiming at finishing the JLPT N3 as soon as I can. That's going to be something that I'm going to be focusing on at the beginning of 2023, now that I'm going full-time with Game Gengo, so hope you guys enjoy the videos. Expect a lot very, very soon, and I'll see you all again in the next video. See ya.